ಶ್ರೀ ಗಣೇಶ ಶಾರದಾ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಸಿಂಧೂರಾರುಣ ವಿಗ್ರಹಾಂ ತ್ರಿನಯನಾಂ ಮಾಣಿಕ್ಯಮೌಲಿಸ್ಫುರತ್ತಾರಾನಾಯಕ ಶೇಖರಾಂ ಸ್ಮಿತಮುಖೀಂ ಆಪೀನಮಕ್ಷೋರುಹಾಂ ಪಾಣಿಭ್ಯಾಮಲಿಪೂರ್ಣರತ್ನಚಷಕಂ ರಕ್ತೋತ್ಪಲಂ ಬಿಭ್ರತೀಂ ಸೌಮ್ಯಾಂ ರತ್ನಘಟಸ್ಥರಕ್ತಚರಣಾಂ ಧ್ಯಾಯೇತ್ಪರಾಂ ಅಂಬಿಕಾಂ. Welcome to all for this session on Lalitopakhyanam. In the previous chapters, we have seen how initially Durmada was killed by Sampatkari Devi, and later Kurunda was killed by Ashwaruda Devi, and then on seeing the loss of his two great brother commanders, Bhandasura sent five mighty commanders with an army of 100 akshouhini with them. And then those five commanders brought along with them Sarpini Maya, which created crores and crores of serpents, which caused havoc in the Shakti army. However, Devi Lalita created Nakulishwari, who in turn created crores and crores of mongooses, which killed those crores of snakes. And then she created mighty mongooses with diamond body, who smashed that entire 100 Akshauhini army of those five commandants. Finally, those five commandants were slain by cutting off their head by Nakulishwari. Hayagriva continued the story. After Karanka and his colleagues were slain by Nakuleshwari, the few who could manage to escape the death out of mighty army of the 100 Akshouhinis returned to Shunyakanagara in great fear and related the course of incidents in detail to their lord Bhandasura, who could scarcely believe that the five of his able commanders who had been successful in previous campaigns against the Devatas could now be put to death by one Lalita's chief. Greatly disappointed and stricken with grief, he sighed again and again and at last said to his commander in chief Kutilaksha, "O Bhadratma, what ill fate is dogging our steps? How is it possible for Karanka and the rest with Sarpini Maya in their possession to face such defeat though supported by 100 Akshauhinis? That woman was indeed a greater power over Maya than the rest of us. Send now our 7 commanders, Valahaka and others, with another 100 akshouhinis. They are very efficient in Kuta Yuddha, and they will certainly be able to capture these women folk by their war tactics, as they are born of the womb of Kaikasa. Obeying his lord's behest, Kutilaksha sent for Valahaka, Suchi Mukha, Phala Mukha, Vikrama, Vikatanana, Karataksha, Karataka, and the 7 warrior brothers who always cooperated and worked in unison, each strengthening the others. They came immediately and saluting their lord and master, departed on their mission with a following of 300 akshauhinis. The armies were so vast that they resembled the gathering of vast clouds in the entire firmament. The thud of their movement on the ground shook it as an earthquake would, and the dust raised thereby settled on the waters of the ocean, turning them brown and thick. The noise of their war drums and war music filled the firmament and echoed from mountains and forests. With a desperate determination born of sorrow at the loss of so many Dhanava warrior chiefs and the desire to be the vanquishers of this woman foe of theirs, the 7 warlords, well armored and well armed, advanced towards Lalita Devi's Shakti host. On beholding them, Devi ordered her armies to charge the onrushing foes. Armed with nose, pestle-like weapon, discus, swords, knives, daggers, axes, hatchets, hammers, spears, bows, and arrows, the Shakti host poured into the ranks of the advancing Danava host. The seven Danava chiefs shouted to them to come and mingle with them still more quickly and briskly, for them it would make their task of sending them to Yama's abode much easier. For a while, however, they allowed the Shakti host to mingle with the Danava host and quickly watched their strength and manner of battle and saw their Danavas falling easily at their hands. They saw the damsels slaying numerous Danavas at a time single handed and wondered at their courage and enterprise. The Devata host watching from the firmament became joyful at such easy slaughter of their foes and began to shout and encourage the Shakti damsels with great enthusiasm. One damsel fearlessly approached a Danava and sliced off his head at the neck so suddenly that the blood surged forth like a fountain from the headless neck. While kites and vultures gathered around in a circle, another damsel encountered the arrow of a Danava and sent one right through his throat. At another damsel riding a horse charged into her foe also on a horse and slashed at his chest, sending him to Yama's abode. At another damsel rushing at Danava attacked his elephant Vahana and cut off the two protrusions on his forehead, resembling her two full breasts with her khadga. And in the same instant she shattered the bow of the Danava with her disc and hit him behind between his eyebrows. Here a damsel shot an arrow which cut into two the dagger in a Danava's hand and sent him also to death's abode. There a damsel chased a charioteer and attacked him with a spear, exhibiting the strength of her loins. There was another woman who sent a series of daggers flying at the Danava's chariot, showing the strength of her handsome thighs. Very soon, however, the Shakti damsels had gone into the ranks of Danavas, and the latter also had gone so far into the ranks of the Shakti host that the two hosts appeared as a mixture of water and milk, almost inseparable. Observing this opportune moment, the Danava chief Valahaka, born of flames and mighty in courage and Maya Yukti, rode on a fierce kite Vahana by name Samhara Gupta and rushed straight into the melee and released his invincible arrows. They moved down the Shakti damsels like hay to the great joy of his Danava host, who acclaimed him with gladdened shouts of wonder. Flying on his mighty kite, he went around slaying the Shakti damsels with his fierce, fiery arrows. Suchi Mukha also ride on a huge crow, moved about slashing at the damsels. His mount also disposed a numberless dames. It was now the Danava's turn to jump in joy at such wholesale slaughter of damsels who hitherto had been making short work of them. Then came Phala Mukha also and joined his brothers Vikala or Vikrama soon followed. Vikatanana also joined riding on his cock which also began to maul and slay dames through now without number. The sixth brother Karataksha rode his activated corpse mount into the battlefield, striking terror into the ranks of his foes. He had once performed severe austerities in a cemetery and burial ground and invoked by power of his mantra a long armed corpse with an indescribable face and prolonged feet. This corpse had agreed to become the Vahana of Karalaksha. Then came the seventh warrior brother Karataka, carried by no other than the fierce Betala himself. Betala's body occupied a yojana in extent, and his cruel eyes burned like a fire. This Karataka also had performed severe tapas in a cemetery invoking Betala mantra, and as a result, Betala was pleased with him and agreed to become his Vahana in the battlefield. As the Shakti horse had already mingled with the Danavas like milk and water, it was now impossible for the damsels to retreat from the simultaneous and fierce onslaught of the seven brothers whose gruesome Vahanas also took part in the struggle. Then came a startling occurrence. The Danava chiefs had a secret weapon which they reserved up to this opportune moment when the damsels were in enmeshed and surrounded on all sides by Danava warriors. The seven Kaikasa chiefs had once made tapas with a view to invoke the sun. Pleased with their long and austere purpose, the deity's son had appeared before them, and had pressed them to accept a boon, whereupon they had desired that the sun's power should reside in their eyes when invoked during wartime, and that this rays falling on the foe should immobilize them and render their arms and weapons futile, so that they, means the Kaikasas, could easily slay the statue like impotent foes with impunity. This is exactly what suddenly happened among the Shakti host as soon as the seven Kaikasa brothers had come into their midst and gazed at them with their mysteriously glowing eyes. The damsels all became still like statues, unable to wield their weapons of war or even to move their limbs. While they were in such a pitiable plight, the Danavas cut them down like so many logs of wood, and they were in a mere helpless situation. The fully armed Rakshasas now began to slay the powerless and virtually unarmed foe with impunity. Unable to escape their mysterious power emanating from the eyes of Kaikasas, the wounded, maimed, and bleeding damsels began mentally to pray to Laliteshwari thus: O Mother and Creator of the entire universe, O Lalitamba, who rule over the good people, do protect us from this great calamity. O came to our rescue speedily. No sooner had this prayer been uttered than Lalitambika, the ocean of mercy, looked at Varahi's bodyguard and the mighty warrior Tri- Tiraskarini Devi. Immediately, Tiraskarini Devi climbed her mount named Tamoliptavahana, which was capable of looking on all sides simultaneously, arming herself with a Mohana bow. Yeah, Tiraskarini Devi charged into the battlefield with a terrific war cry and rained serpent like arrows. The Rakshasas began to flee in all directions, abandoning their statue like damsel victims. Advised by Dandini Devi, Tiraskarini let loose the blinding astra on Valahaka and his six brothers, whereupon they all became blind, because so far it is with their vision, with their view, they could able to make all the damsels into a turn them into statue. Now Tiraskarini Devi turned all of them to become blind, so that the mysterious power of the sun had no effect anymore. Immediately, the statue like Shakti damsels got the use of their limbs and were able to move about and also use their many powerful weapons effectively, led by Devi Tiraskarini. The damsels once more began their slaughter of the Dhanavas, constituting the 300 akshouhini armies. They gratefully praised Devi Tiraskarini for releasing them from by blinding the cruel Dhanava chiefs and making them impotent. So the Devi was real Shatru Tiraskarini. The damsels persuaded her to slay the seven brothers instantly and earn the approval of both Varahi Devi as well as Shyamalamba. Accordingly, Devi Tiraskarini caught hold of Valahaka by the hair of his head and beheaded him. She also slew his kite Vahana with her arrows. On beholding this act of hers, the Devas shouted in joy and begged her to slay the rest of the chiefs also. Going up to Suchi Mukha, she sliced off his head with her broad sword, and it rolled on the ground with its gem studded crown. She gave the same treatment to the remaining five Danava chiefs also in quick succession, so that their heads also rolled on the ground helplessly. The Shakti damsels made the best use of their limbs and weapons and dispatched most of the 300 akshouhini army to Yama's abode, so that rivers of blood flowed on the battlefield. All those who had escaped from this wholesale slaughter ran to Shunyakanagara and with great fear and trembling reported the story of the defeat of the seven mighty Kaikasa warriors to their king Bhandasura, whose heart sank at the baleful news. Here on the battlefield, Dandanayaki, mean Varahi Devi praised Tiraskarini for her wondrous skill, dexterity, and resourcefulness and looked upon her with great favor, praising her again and again. Thus, in this part of the story, we have seen the mighty commandant Balahaka along with other six special commanders with 300 Akshauhini army fighting over the Shakti army. Initially, they could able to achieve a greater victory by using several Maya powers. They also had a boon from Aditya, Surya, that by looking at their foe, they could able to turn them to statue so that their foe will be unable to move their limbs and the arms. They used this power against the damsels and they started turning them into statue and slaying them. However, in the meantime, Lalitambika looked at Tiraskarini Devi, the bodyguard of Dandanayaki or Varahi Devi, and immediately Tiraskarini Devi went into the battlefield. She blinded all the seven commandants and finally cut off their heads, putting an end to their battle. नमस्ते शारदा देवी काश्मीरपुरवासिनी त्वामहं प्रार्थये नित्यं विद्यादानं च देहि मे. Goodbye.